Coming in now, I want to take you back live to NASA headquarters where, look, let's listen in. Oh, silence. We just saw the clapping and the cheering, however. That's the news out of this, because Mission Control says they can confirm without a doubt that their equipment is on the moon, which means they may have just made history by putting that
call, Gary, that was something else, a faint signal. Now it's time to work on refining that signal. But Dr. Tim Crane, our mission director today, making the call. Odysseus has a new home.
It shows the disciplines of the flight controllers.
Big smiles from NASA there, you see, as the U.S. is set to basically make history if there is firm and final confirmation, which will come hours from now, that Odysseus has, in fact, that lunar lander made it to the south pole of the moon. A big deal because this is the first U.S. spacecraft to land on the moon in more than 50 years, ever since the Apollo era. Marissa Parra is with us along with, and we're lucky to have her, Dr. Mae Jemison, former astronaut and, of course, the first woman of color to go to space. Marissa, let me quickly start with you, and then Dr. Jemison will get to you. But Marissa, set the scene for us. A big moment for NASA.
Yeah, and it's been a dramatic, actually, it's been just a dramatic day in general following this. But of course, the last 10 or so minutes, I mean, this was supposed to land at 6:24, and there was radio silence essentially coming from Odysseus. And so collectively, everyone has been holding their breath. You heard, though, they confirmed that the equipment is on the surface of the moon. That's what they said. But in terms of the communication, that's the part that is still lacking. And that is the part that they said that they're continuing to reboot the system. They're planning on rebooting the system in order to continue to make contact with this lunar lander. And we'll talk about the historic nature in just a moment, but it's really important to point out it's the location that was a big part and factor in why this was so tricky. The south pole of the moon is a part of the moon that is undiscovered, unexplored. There's these icy waters that scientists, astronauts hope can be used to potentially provide rocket fuel for missions to other parts of our solar system, including Mars. So when we talk about the space race, Hallie, of course we have the space race, we have the race to the moon to bring humans back to the moon. If this is 100% confirmed, this is the first private mission to the moon to have a lunar landing on the moon from, you know, a vehicle landing. But then we also have humans aiming to be back on the moon end of next year. But then, of course, the race to Mars. This would be a huge part. If they can tap into those icy waters, this would be a huge part of that. But, of course, it doesn't come without its challenges. Hallie, remember, just 1 month after a crash and burn, an unsuccessful attempt to do exactly this.
Marissa Parra, thank you so much. Dr. Jemison, to you, we're so glad to have you with us at this major moment for NASA. Talk about what's going through your head, what's going through your mind as you're watching this all unfold, and the cheers and the smiles now from your former colleagues there.
Well, the cheers and the smiles are because they were able to take a number of different technologies and really do some ingenious work with connecting things through and sort of saving the day. And I think what particularly I'm feeling right now is that ability to build upon so much that we've done before is pushing us forward. Now, I know we talk about the race to the moon, the race to Mars, but I think that we should really think of this as humans progressing, that we as a species, as a planet, are leaving our home, but we want to leave it in a way that's sustainable. And I don't mean leaving it in that, oh, we're going away from Earth and we're not coming back, but rather that we're able to expand and we're able to progress. And so those are the things that are going through my mind. But let's be clear, there have been a number of missions to the moon. This is one in a series. What marks this differently is that it's a commercial. It was tabbed as a commercial mission.
And what's also important here, you talk about this being part of a series, there is more to come, right? I mean, there are significant next steps that NASA hopes to take as we, as you so eloquently put it, talk about the way that humans are progressing beyond simply our planet.
Right, and all of those steps are really, for me, they not only have us going further away from our home here on Earth, but at the same time, they give us a better vantage point in which to explore our planet, to see things about the universe, to understand the universe. So I think we really need to put it into a larger context, not just one that, wow, they did this and that's the end of it. But it's a series of things that we're going to be doing, that we're going to be able to evaluate. And even the technology advances that we have now really influence what we can do here on Earth, right? The ingenuity with the communications, all of those things are very beneficial.
Dr. Jemison, we're seeing on the left side of the screen a few pictures of you from not too long ago, and your moments of making history. How would you say, in your view, how would you compare the current state of space exploration to when you were sort of actively engaged in this? How do you think about that?
Wow, you know what I really almost want to think more about, less than when I was in going into space. We have a progression. So we see that we have more players involved. It's not just the United States and the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, that are having humans in space. We have India has landed landed on the moon. China, there's much more. Japan, there's much more breadth in space exploration now. So that's a part that's particularly interesting to me. But I would even say that I would compare it to growing up when I was in the 1960s. And that is that we have some hope that we can do things that are bigger and better. We also have a lot of discord. And what my hope and desire is that space can help us to see each other more as part of this greater world, and that we can move forward. My fear is that as we talk about commercial exploration, we forget that we have to share the moon, right? Whose birthright is it? Is it just the people who land there, right? Is it just the companies? We really need to figure out a lot of things about what this means to go to other planets, what it means to share what's on this planet. And I think it brings all of those things into focus.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.